What is going on, Hive Warriors? It's your boy Edward V, and today we're going to talk about 3 big mistakes when it comes to intermittent fasting in 2021. Listen, we've had so much time with intermittent fasting to do trial and error, and figure out what are the best methods. And also, studies continue to come out with intermittent fasting showing us what is the best things that we should apply when doing intermittent fasting. So, 2021, we need to update this list. And these are the 3 big mistakes that you are probably making when intermittent fasting. Let's go ahead and break it down in this video. Stay tuned. The number one thing that we're going to talk about regarding the big mistakes, and this one's probably gonna hurt and bother a lot of people, but it has to be said, and it is thinking that you can eat whatever you want. I know this is almost intermittent fasting blasphemy, because intermittent fasting, that the coolest thing about it is I could eat whatever I want. That's what draws me to it. The fact that I could just eat whatever I want. And I get it. I 100% get that. That is intriguing, and that is freeing to know that you could design what you want in terms of your meals, and you don't have to think about the specific meals, but just when you eat them. But we're noticing more and more with more studies that the macronutrient breakdown matters in terms of finding success with intermittent fasting and being as optimal as possible when doing intermittent fasting. For example, if you don't have an increased protein intake for the day, it's going to be difficult for you to maintain things like muscle mass, because your brain can only work so much off of ketone bodies. Brain can only take about 75% of ketone bodies. So at a certain point, your brain may decide to do something called glucose neogenesis, and that is taken from the muscle tissue itself and turning that into glucose so that your brain can have that extra additional 25% from glucose itself, because your brain prefers glucose over ketones. Your brain will only use ketones if it has to, if glycogen has been completely depleted from the body. So you want to make sure that your protein intake, you up that, and that you exercise in conjunction with that so that you send the correct signals to your brain that you need the muscles that you have on your body. If you send those correct signals, you help protect your muscle, and that means more calorie partitioning that's coming from where else but your body fat. So you want to at least, I understand not specific food items, but you want to at least make sure that your macronutrients are on point and the nutrition that you're getting from your foods are on point. You want to make sure that you're getting fiber. You want to make sure that you're increasing your protein intake to protect muscle and have enough protein grams by the end of the day. All of these things will help you in the long run. Trust me, these studies are showing us that people who do intermittent fasting and don't pay attention to their meals are losing lean mass faster than those who do pay attention to their meals. Let's go ahead and get to number 2. This bounces off of number 1, but feeling forced to apply the keto diet. You don't know how many times I've heard people say, well, I'm gonna have to do keto to do intermittent fasting because I wanna get that double whammy of like the intermittent fasting, burning that as well as the keto diet, so not consuming carbs, so I don't even give my body the ability to have glycogen or enough glycogen. So I'm really just bouncing from fasting to small amounts of glycogen to quickly depleting that and jumping right into fasting. That is fine, but you don't need to force yourself to do the keto diet to see results. You can do intermittent fasting without the keto diet. Now, one of the things when it comes to human psychology, because this is incredibly important, you also have to take into account the human psyche. When you put so many barriers in terms of willpower up against you, it is a much daunting task to hang on to these protocols for the rest of your life. And that's the key element, that you will need to do these things forever. Of course, you can have exception days, but those days are exactly that, exception days, not rules. So if your rule is to do intermittent fasting, then that's the flow that you should go into. But if you set a rule where you do intermittent fasting and keto, you're layering the restrictions that you have to foods that you can eat or when you can eat. So now you can't eat in a certain amount of time. And then when you do eat in a certain amount of time, you can only eat a certain amount of food. It just starts taxing on your willpower. I would say pick one or the other if it's hard for you. Now, if you can do it, if you've flown with it and it's fine, go and keep doing that because it works for you. But if you hit a wall where you feel you're just too deprived, I would say to drop one or the other. Either drop fasting or drop the keto diet. But please don't feel like you're forced to do both. This is not telling you not to do both, just simply to not feel like you're forced to do both. You can get results with either the keto diet or intermittent fasting separated from each other. Now let's go ahead and get into number 3. Multiple consecutive breaks of intermittent fasting. If you do this, you have to understand that when you do intermittent fasting, you are breaking long-standing habits that you built over time because you probably ate breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or at least lunch and dinner, or at least snacks in between for so many years before you started doing intermittent fasting. Unless you're one of those people that just intuitively did intermittent fasting. If you are, then you're probably in a good place anyways. But most of us did the traditional breakfast, lunch, dinner, meal model. And if we did, that means that we have mountains of neurological data and just habitual reflexes to eat that way. When we apply an intermittent fasting system, the first 2 weeks and a half are incredibly difficult. And the reason that they are is because of that programming, that biological programming that we have. We are not hungry during breakfast, lunch, and dinner because humans are hungry during breakfast, lunch, and dinner. No, it's because we've been prescribed to eat during that time, and because we've done it all the time, our bodies are used to it. Once you break that habit, you can flow. You can flow into whatever intermittent fasting system you have where you don't feel hungry until it's time for you to break your fast. And then when it's time for you to go back into your fast, you are no longer hungry until you break your fast again because you've built that flow and your body understands that rhythm. But if you give your body even a little bit of a taste of what it used to have, it will start desiring for you to go back to eating the way you were eating before. Ghrelin is going to start kicking up during these periods where you should be fasting. Leptin is going to start to reduce, which is the hormone that tells you you're hungry, allowing you to overeat during the times when you are eating. So if you do the exception day, one day, you might kind of tap on the door. If you do it 2 days in a row, you're going to be pounding on that door. If you do it 3 days in a row, 4 days in a row, 5 days in a row, you are essentially kicking that door wide open and telling your brain that you are ready to get back into the way you were doing it before, and your brain is going to do everything possible to get you to get back there. Try to have these exception days, and that's what I call them, the exception to the rule. Try to have these exception days be few and far between. Patreons will be pinned down in the comment section below. I'll see you in the next one. Peace!